Hello and welcome to Your United Way. I'm your host, Ashley Wright, and also the Executive Director for the United Way here in Paducah and McCracken County. Today I have two wonderful guests with us, Georgann Lookofsky and Kristin Williams, and I'm very excited to talk with you all about an issue that is very important to me, both personally and professionally, and that's the issue of poverty. And you all are serving on a very important task force here in McCracken County called Impact Poverty, and we're just delighted to have you here to talk a little bit about what that task force is going to be doing for this community over the next several months. Thank you very much for being here. Why don't we start off by talking a little bit about, for our viewers that may not be familiar with this work, exactly what the Impact Poverty Task Force is.
Well, the Impact Poverty Task Force came about as a result of some statistics that some local citizens have noticed about the increase in poverty, particularly in Paducah, but then we also know nationwide. We had the highest poverty level last year since 1997. And of course the recession has brought to light a lot of folks out of work,
Sure.
Different issues. So the task force is a way to look at that issue holistically. When you start to track down what causes poverty, you go down many different paths. There's not a single solution to it. People are out of work, or if you're a child in poverty and you go to school and you can't really concentrate because you don't know where you're going to be sleeping that night or where you're going to be eating, and health issues and mental health issues. There's so many different things that go into creating poverty that hopefully this task force will have a broad cross-section of people who can look at it, bring a lot of different expertise to the issue, and come up with some strategies to help our community.
Well, why are you all, I guess, personally involved in investing your time in this initiative?
Well, for me personally, Ashley, I've been involved with United Way for a number of years, and for several years now, United Way has been looking at ways to go beyond treating the symptoms that our agencies deal with. Yes, there are people who need food today, there are people who need childcare today, but in many cases the bigger issue is why, and is there not a responsibility that United Way bears to go out and look at the why behind that need and try to come up with some solutions. And as a member of the United Way board, I think it's critical that our agency take a lead role in helping look at those intrinsic problems that drive people to our agencies.
Absolutely. And I've got a past history serving on the United Way board and am passionate about the United Way, love the United Way. I am in no way, shape, or form any subject matter expert on this, but I do have experience with groups and facilitating groups over a period of time, much like we worked in this community on a think tank a couple of years ago on economic development with some really good results. So I'm excited about helping out in that way.
Well, I know that the task force is obviously going to be broader than just the two of you all. I know it's going to be a very diverse group, but can we talk a little bit about who is going to make up that task force?
We've got a stellar steering committee that I think helps really guide what our work is going to be. John Williams Sr., a retired but still chair of the board of CSI, is on that, and it is through a lot of his work that this has come about. Both the school superintendents from the city and county, Georgann representing the United Way, Michael Byers representing the Chamber of Commerce, Cynthia Sanderson, Judge Sanderson representing obviously the legal system, and then myself and the United Way. So great steering committee to kind of help shape it, and then a much broader task force that has a lot of other folks as well.
How many people do you think will be on that broader task force?
Do we have a target number? Probably
35
30.
to 40.
Yeah.
And just from all walks of life, is that sort of what
That's absolutely correct, because just as you said, every aspect of our community, every aspect of our culture factors into trying to both understand poverty and then in the long term address poverty. And so it's critical that every part of our community be represented on the task force.
And it's important to think about it. There are so many great organizations working on this issue right now in their own way, and we've got churches that have after school programs and serve meals to people. We have teachers in schools who have just kind of taken it upon themselves to mentor some kids. We've got mentoring programs. We have St. Nicholas Clinic that serves the working poor. There's so many different pockets of help, but hopefully this task force can kind of bring together as a community and look at it, bring everything in, and look at it holistically and see what really is working well. How do we encourage those efforts? See where there might be some gaps, where do we need to fill in. So we've got ministers, we have county, city representation, really trying hard to make sure it's a representative of our community.
I'm sure that's a big task too, though. I mean, trying to make sure that you've got people that both have a personal connection to poverty, either having been in that
Right.
situation, but also wanting to hear from folks that maybe have never personally experienced
Right.
it, but bring a different perspective. And
Well, and the good news is we'll be studying this for a year.
Okay.
And the good news is we will be bringing in a whole lot of other people to hear from as well. So just because someone may or may not be represented on the task force, we're hoping to give a voice to a lot of different people in this community so we can put all that information in about 40 brains and see what strategies we can get out of it.
So, do you all have some larger goals for this task force? I mean, I know you all are going to get together, but obviously, you have an outcome in mind.
Ideally, what we will develop for the community is a 10-year plan to reduce poverty in Paducah and McCracken County, and also suggest strategies to help people break the cycle of generational poverty. And that's a hard nut to crack.
Definitely.
And
definitely.
you know, when you hear 10 years, I know that people go, oh, I can't imagine, but it is a very difficult challenge, and we're trying not to be naive that we're going to go out and make tremendous change right away. I think at best we hope to generate some incremental change to get people talking about some important issues, and then, as Kristin said, begin to develop this strategy that can move our community forward on the path that will eventually lead to significant change for our residents.
And our hope is because of the diverse composition of the task force and the number of people involved, that this group will be able to make recommendations beyond just the United Way. There might be some legislative issues that come out of this. There might be some guidelines that the United Way uses for how they fund programs. There might be some business issues that the Chamber of Commerce could address. And obviously having the city and county engaged is something very important. So,
You know, you mentioned at the beginning, Kristin, that part of this study sort of developed out of some research that had been done locally, and I know John Williams Sr. had been heavily involved in that. And when I've heard his presentation and read different statistics on poverty in our community, one of the things that always shocks me is that poverty, particularly in Paducah and McCracken County, seems to be rising at a rate higher than other communities similar to ours across the state of Kentucky.
it is rising, and the U.S. rate between 2000 and 2008, poverty rose 0.4%, as did the state of Kentucky. McCracken County did a little worse than that at 0.7%. However, there's some Kentucky cities that have increased substantially. Substantially. Paducah rose 5.5%.
Wow, yeah.
Owensboro 4.3, Hopkinsville 3.6. So part of the work we need to do is to get to the why. Is that.
And it's really important, the time period you notice there, 2000 to 2008, which basically predates the most recent economic recession, which many people would point to as, well, obviously, yes, you know, we have more poor people today than we had 2 years ago, but these figures show us that number has been rising for a number of years.
And just as a whole, though, too, Paducah is, the number of families in poverty is about 23%. And you compare that to U.S. is about 13%. So we've had a problem for a while that we need to address. I mean, not only the increase, but just the sheer number of people in our community. You know, 25% of Paducah's population is, about 6,000 people. McCracken County has what do they have? 12%. But that's still a significant
Very.
number of people that we need to figure out how to break that cycle.
Definitely, and I'm Kids Count does
Yes.
a survey of children and just the general health of children, and they look at poverty, and I know that right now they say 1 in 4 children in McCracken County will be born into poverty, which is that's a shocking statistic. And if this task force can help identify reasons why and help us get to the root cause of that, wonderful. And you're right, Georgann, it's not going to be something that we can snap our fingers and create something in a year and have this utopia here in Paducah.
Absolutely.
But I would also imagine that there are going to be people that are going to say, poverty has been with us always. Why are you all trying, or what in the world could you all do to make a difference about that? And how do you respond to those kind of criticisms?
Well, I think just because it's always been here doesn't mean it always has to be. And there's so many. I'm so thankful that the school superintendents are so very engaged in this, because when you look at the number of people in poverty in Paducah, 35% have no high school education. McCracken County, 23%, or no high school degree or GED. So obviously, education is going to be a huge component of this. Kids mentoring can have a profound effect on a child's life, and I've got friends that talk about. Even my father grew up poor in North Carolina, Appalachian community. I think his dad had a 6th grade education, and his high school English teacher literally threw him in the back of her car and took him to Berea College, where he's got his education. So, that connection, if you're not getting the resources you need in your family, having someone outside of your family care about you enough to make sure good things happen to you can have a big impact.
Well, and you mentioned something earlier, just briefly, generational poverty, and that is something that we here in our community tend to think of that as a big city problem, or an Appalachian problem, or a rural Deep South problem. But really, our numbers show that that is a reality in Paducah. And so it behooves us as a community to do something, to intervene, exactly as you said. And each intervention for each family may be different. What brought your family to poverty, what's kept your family in poverty. There are a whole lot of complicated factors that come into play there, but what we know is there has to be some sort of change, or your family's going to continue in poverty. You're going to continue to need support from the community. You're going to continue to fail to educate your children. You're going to continue to be in need. And so I think, again, what we're looking at is, no, we won't fix everything, but we can fix some things.
Yeah.
Now, the other end of that spectrum is pretty scary as well. We're all aware that as a population we are aging. So that segment of society is we're having statistically more and more people over 65. And people are not retiring as they thought that they could. The nest eggs took a big hit. So not only do we need to also look at youth, but we also need to look at that population and those needs that they will have, healthcare needs. I know my church does something building ramps so people can stay in their home as long as possible.
Right.
But that's another area of concern I think we need to look at.
It sounds like there are a lot of, or there could be potentially a lot of programs in this community already doing small pieces of this pie.
Right.
And so is part of this task force going to be identifying what's working already in our community?
Well, and things like, for instance, the West Kentucky Community and Technical College Scholarship Program that has been born here in our community. That is a wonderful opportunity, but we have to be sure that everyone is taking advantage of that opportunity, that some people don't feel somehow isolated from that opportunity.
Or it's being communicated in a way they can
hear
about it.
Exactly. So yeah, there are a lot of good things going on out there, and I think that's the value of taking this big picture look at the problem. And you can note the programs that are there, you can note which ones are working, which ones could do better, how we could help, how to, I think, synergy between programs and organizations.
And I think there's some there's always some skepticism and some, gosh, you know, we've got people just going from agency to agency every day, taking advantage of programs, and there's some new tools that have been put in place. I think the United Way is using to help track that. Charity Tracker, yes, so that you can share your information with other groups, and you can kind of help, instead of painting everybody who gets some kind of assistance with a broad brushstroke, really identifying those who abuse the system.
Yes. What you had mentioned that that you're going to be bringing together a very diverse group, but are you also going to be looking outside of Paducah McCracken County to bring in some experts? Are there some trainings or courses that your group is going to be looking at?
I think the city schools have used a tool for a number of years called Bridges Out of Poverty. It's a book by Ruby Payne and another author, I've forgotten her name, but we're going to do a shared reading and also a shared training very early in the study, so we get some language and some shared understanding. And then, yes, as we progress, we've got, I'm all for going and stealing great ideas. So hopefully what's happened, my experience with groups has been, if we can get a lot of people passionate about this, we start reading, you start talking, sharing information, some communities might rise up that we really need to go take a look at and understand how they've solved this problem, because this is in no way, shape, or form unique to Paducah McCracken County.
No, but do you believe that there are other communities that are doing this kind of work as well?
We know there are, and in fact through United Way we've been able to learn of many other United Ways. Hundreds of communities literally across the country are facing and beginning to work on this same problem, and so there's a great system for sharing information, lessons learned through that program. So we're really excited. I think we are attacking this problem at a good time. And so we're part of a wave across the country, and we'll be able to benefit from, you know, the things that other communities are learning as well.
And are you going to roll this out in the community at any specific time, or how are we going to let the community know what is going on with this task force?
I hope we're very transparent as we go. We will be sending press releases, we will be sharing information. We've got the steering committee that has representation of some very large groups, and it's hopes that those individuals will go back to those organizations and say what's going to happen. We hope to have what we're calling a quick start tool as we go. If we trip across something that, gosh, for a very small amount of money we could have a huge impact, you know, go ahead and implement that instead of waiting till the end. And then culminating a year's worth of work, we will get everybody in a room for at least a day and hammer out that plan and then roll that out to the community about this time next year.
So it's going to be, I mean, obviously we're going to take some time on this process then. So you're looking at from now in June until probably next year around this time.
It's clear. I mean, I read the Bridges Out of Poverty book for the first time just recently, and you know, just immediately my head was filled with ideas, and a lot of things became clear to me that I had not understood, because I, you know, have been blessed in my life not to live in poverty, and have been sheltered to some extent from the challenges that many families face. And so when you begin to really walk in their shoes and see the obstacles they face, and see then how that affects them, both there's the practical aspect of that, simply I can't pay my electric bill this month, but then there's the larger emotional aspect of that. How does that make me feel as a person? How does that affect how I parent my children? You know, many issues that come into play and create opportunities for an organization like our task force to really begin to change the way people think as well as the way they act.
Well, I'm very excited. I look forward to having both of you on our show next year around this time to hear about the results and really begin to understand the strategic direction that this task force believes that we should take over the next several years. And I thank you both so much for your time today, but more importantly for all the work that I know that you all have put in and will continue to put into this task force and into this community. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all of your work.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. In the earlier part of our show, we were speaking with Georgann Lookofsky and Kristin Williams about an important initiative going on in our community around poverty. And our next guest is Mallory Heely, who is a volunteer coordinator for the United Way, but she is also working on a very important program and initiative in McCracken County that will actually probably impact many of the people that the Impact Poverty Task Force is looking to help as well. So thank you for being here, Mallory.
Sure, I'm glad to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about what the program that you're working on, which is Familywize. Can you tell us a little bit about this program?
Sure. Familywize is a program that is designed to alleviate healthcare costs for citizens across the country. It's a program that started in Pennsylvania in 2005, and it rapidly expanded. Now there are 25,000 doctors, pharmacies, and different agencies involved with the program. How they alleviate the healthcare costs is by handing out discount prescription cards. I've got one here today. So these are distributed to people all across the country to help them with prescription costs.
And why is the United Way involved in this program?
Sure. United Way got involved in Pennsylvania back in 2005 when the program started. They recognized the program as a great initiative, and they wanted to help distribute the cards to low-income people across their area. And 800 United Ways across the country are now involved in distributing the cards to their community. The United Way of Paducah McCracken County got involved because we heard about the program and wanted to help spread the cards throughout the Paducah area.
So you've got the cards that you just showed. You can
Yes.
show them again. And an individual can take that card and take it to a pharmacy and use that?
Yes, you can use it right away as soon as you receive a card. You don't need to fill out any paperwork or anything like that. The discount will be applied right when you purchase your prescription at the pharmacy.
And there's no enrollment time or any lag time in between the time you get that?
Correct. You can just use it right there. They're available at pharmacies throughout the community. So just pick one up and present it when you check out with your prescription.
What if I have insurance? Can I still use the card?
People with insurance can use the card if they are purchasing a prescription that is not covered by their health plan.
Okay.
And that applies to Medicare and Medicaid as well, any sort of health benefit plan.
So you said that the United Way has gotten involved here locally. Do you know any local statistics yet for McCracken County?
Yes, we have distributed the cards to a few area agencies, and already it's having a great impact in our area. As of April of this year, there have been 3,300 claims using the card and over $74,000 in savings. And the average savings for each of these claims is about $23. Your savings will depend on the prescription that you're purchasing and the pharmacy that you are using, but it's about $23 per prescription. In the state of Kentucky, there has been about $1.2 million in savings, and nationally over $112 million has been saved.
Wow.
So it really is impacting not only our community but the nation as well.
So can any pharmacy take these, or do we have some that are collaborating with us on this project?
Yes, we've been working with the pharmacies throughout the community. Most of them should have the cards. We encourage everyone to just stop into their local pharmacy and ask about the program. Again, it's called Familywize. But we know for a fact that CVS and Kroger and Lone Oak Pharmacy are distributing and accepting the cards.
Okay, wonderful. And so anyone can get them.
Yes.
You don't have to qualify, you don't have to be a certain income level, a certain age,
Correct.
anything. It's open to anyone.
Correct. It almost sounds too good to be true, but
Yes.
it's not. There's no requirements or anything like that, age restrictions. You can use the card for multiple uses, so you don't need a new card every time. You can make copies of it for your friends or coworkers. You can also use the card for anyone in your household, so people in your family as well. It really is easy to use.
And how can individuals get these cards other than going into the pharmacy? Are there other locations in Paducah?
Sure. Again, there's CVS, Lone Oak Pharmacy, and Kroger. We know they're displaying them, but they're also available at different agencies around town, like the health department. You can call our office and pick one up there, and they're also on our website, which is unitedwaypaducah.org. There is a link on our homepage that you can click to print the discount card. You can just print it and make copies for yourself and friends. Again, you can do that. And you can also go to the Familywize website. That is Familywize with a Z, .org. And also on that site, there's a tool where you can look up different prescriptions and see about what your savings will be. It'll give you a general idea.
You gave some really great statistics from McCracken County. Are there, is there a personal story that, an individual story that we know of to kind of put a face on this program here?
Yes, actually. We had someone call our office probably about a month ago, and she needed an antibiotic and was worried about paying for this prescription, and she had heard about the Familywize program. And we told her to come on down to our office and pick up the card. So she stopped by and called back later that afternoon after she had used the card. And she said, "Thank you so much for giving that to me. It worked so well. There were no problems or anything. The pharmacy took it, no problem." So it really is easy to use and is working well.
It does sound, like you said, almost too good to be true, but we know that it's working. We know that people are using it.
Right.
And during such tough economic times, I think people really are having to make some tough decisions on getting the medications they need and paying the other bills and just maintaining basic necessities in their life. So it's wonderful to have this kind of program. Thank you so much for the work you're doing with Familywize and with the United Way. And we encourage you, if you are interested in learning more about this, to go to the Familywize website, which is Familywize.org. You can call our office 442-1691, and we hope that this is a huge benefit to you individually and to our community at large. Thank you again for joining us. We are out of time. I'm sorry. I know we could talk about this and other issues for a lot longer, but we appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here at our next episode.